On top of Lamed Aleph, Amud Aleph. Yesterday's sugi was about the shir. It came in Aga because it talked about how come they made a takana not to be Makabla this Chodesh, because one time they came very late and mixed up with the shir. Yesterday's Gemara was, what do you do when you don't know? Do you say no shir at all, or do you say the shir shall chol? That was the sugi. It's over already. And now Aga, the Gemara goes into shir shal yom. Shir shal yom means the shir that they said on the korban when they did the nisuch hayayin. They did the libation, so there's a din to do a shir, and now it talks about what's the shir shal yom. We're familiar with this with the facts. You know, hayom yom rishon shahoyo alavim omrim beis hamikdash, and we say on Sunday, Monday, the minig is to do the shir shal yom that they did on the karbonos. And here the Gemara, the Bryce is going to talk about why was each particular mizmor chosen for that day. What does this parak have to do with yom rishon? What does it have to do with yom sheni? That's going to be the subject. I must say that it sounds might be a lot of depth over here that is not superficially understandable. It's pretty like on a drash level, pretty far that we would imagine the connection between the mizmor and the day. So most of them I don't understand, but we'll say the words. Tanya, Rabbi Yehuda Omer Rishon Rabbi Kiva. Rabbi Yehuda said the name Rabbi Kiva, but Rishon Ma Omer. What do they say on the first day on Sunday? What do you say on Sunday? The answer is Lashem Moros Moloa, which we do all of these. We do all of these. But the question is why? Why do we say this mizmor? The answer is Hashem Shekona Vikna V'Shalit B'Olam, because Hashem acquired and gave over to Kona is to acquire, and by creating it, Hashem acquired it by creating it, and Hikna gave it over to mankind, to Shalit B'Olam, and he's the ruler over his world, and that's what you see Hashem Moritz Moloa. Those first words, Hashem, to Hashem is the earth and its fill, that you do see. But the point about Kana V'Hikna V'Shalit B'Olam, that is maybe not so obvious in the psukim that he gave it over to the people that he created. But that's what it says. Kana vikna b'shalit b'olam. B'sheni. On Monday, what do you say? B'sheni ma yom. What did the Levium say on Yom Sheni? The answer is Gadol Hashem B'mul Mod, which in the Pshat, we just learned it recently, talks about all about Yerushalayim. But what does that have to do with Yom Sheni? So it says here, nothing to do with Yerushalayim. Hashem shechilek masav of Malach HaLand. Hashem divided his creations, which talks about the rakia between the lower waters and the upper waters, and he ruled upon them. So what does that have to do with Yerushalayim? So there's also another gears here, the Bach puts in, based on Rashi, that Hashem, Allah Lamorom, something about the Nis'ala v'yashav b'morom, that once there was division between the heavens and the earth, so Hashem established his place b'morom. So Rashi says that that's similar to Yerushalayim. Just like Yerushalayim, Hashem separated for himself, so too, on the second day is when Hashem separated the heavens. Rabbeinu Chananel says maybe a little different than Rashi. Maybe Rabbeinu Chananel's mashma that just like there was a division, so too Yerushalayim is divided from the rest of the world. Yerushalayim is Hashem's place and it's divided from the rest of the world. That's the connection of Yom Sheni and the Mizmor about Yerushalayim. On Tuesday, what did they say on the third day, on Tuesday? Which the Pashut talks about the Shoftim, the judges, that they should do good judgment, and if they don't, Hashem is going to punish them. But what is the connection to Tuesday? Hashem revealed the land because on the third day it says that that Yabasha was going to be seen. Hashem took away the waters, so the land became revealed for people to live on, and Hashem established the world for his people. So it doesn't really have to do with the subject matter of the parak, Elohim Nisah B'Adasel. It seems just to say that there's Adasel, there's a congregation of God, and they have a place. So that's the connection of Tuesday and this Mizmor. What do they say on Wednesday? All about Hashem coming to punish, the revenge Hashem is taking. And the Pashup Shara talks about people who don't do justice, people that are taking advantage of the poor, the destitute. But it says no, it's taking revenge against those who do Avodah Zarah. Of course, the main issue about the sun and the moon is not because people do Avodah Zarah, but people misuse the sun and the moon. Hashem created the sun and the moon on Yom Revi'i, Moros B'Rikiyah Hashemayim, and what happened was that people serve it, and Hashem is going to take revenge from those people who serve the Avodah Zarah. They worship the sun and the moon. So that's the reason why Kel Lekamos Hashem. B'chamishi, what did they say on Thursday? Aninu Elohim Uzeinu Avilu Yaakov, to sing to Hashem. Sing to the God our strength. And what does that have to do with Thursday? Hashem Shabor offers for Dagim l'shabech l'shmo. That Hashem created on Thursday the birds and the fish to give praise to His name. So Rashi says that when a person sees all different kinds of birds, all different kinds of fish, he's amazed at their beauty and he gives praise to Hashem. And that has to do with Harninu, to sing to Hashem. Even though the rest of the parak doesn't talk about that kind of song, it talks about Chodesh, Tikva B'Chodesh Shofar, and other issues, a reason to sing to Hashem. But the Gemara says about singing about the creation. And Bashishi Yom on Friday, the shir was Hashem Malach Yislavesh. Hashem has ruled and clothed Himself with greatness. Hashem Shagam Malach Malach Alein. That's when Hashem finished His creation. He created man. Everything was finished, and He ruled over them. So that's Hashem Malach of Friday. And Bashvi Ayomer Mizbesh Yom Shabbos. And what does that have to do with Shabbos? So that's the interesting Mizmor, the Mizbesh Yom Shabbos, which we learned. And the Pashup Shad is difficult. I'm not difficult. It needs explanation because what does that have to do with Shabbos? It all talks about, the beginning talks about Tov Lodos Lashem, Zamal Hashem Chayil Yom, Rabbu Masech Hashem. But then it talks a lot about the Rishoyim, that they are, Hashem deals with the Rishoyim. But the Gemara doesn't talk about all that. What is that? We'll get to that. We spoke about what does that have to do with Shabbos. But the one point that the Gemara does talk about is what is Mizbesh Shel Yom Shabbos? Which Shabbos are we talking about? Mizbesh Shel Yom Shabbos, the Yom Shekulo Shabbos. Mizbesh Shel Yom Shabbos means the future, which is all going to be Shabbos. The Elef Hashvi, that's when there's no more Malacha, and just like you have 6 days, and the 7th day is the day of rest. So too in the 6,000 we have 6,000 years of work, and then the schar is going to be Elef Hashvi. So Mizbesh Shel Yom Shabbos is corresponding to the 7th millennia. That's what, all this was Rabbi Akiva. We started at the top of the page and said Tanya, Rabbi Yehuda and Mishra Rabbi Akiva. All this was Rabbi Akiva. And now Rabbi Nechemia is also what Tanya is going to argue on Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Nechemia, Ma ro chachamim, or some say Ma ro Rabbi Akiva, the chalek bein haprakim olav. Why should Rabbi Akiva distinguish between these prakim? It means there's a difference between the first 6 and the 7th. The first 6 are all about the creation, like it says, whatever was created on the first day, the 2nd day, the 3rd day. But the 7th day talks about the future. So Rabbi Nechemia sees that it's not being consistent. Rabbi Akiva is not being consistent. He distinguishes with the 6 and the 1. 6 is in the past and the Shabbos is in the future. So he doesn't like that. Ella, now he really he's going to agree to everything else. The next 6 lines of the Gemara are all repetitious. Everything's word for word what I said before. Watch Rabbi Akiva held. He's just going to jump down to Bashvi. He's going to argue on the 7th day. So it's interesting that this Gersa, maybe some take it out, but we're just going to read it again. It's all Chazara, what Rabbi Akiva said, and everything is agreed upon, but he's just going to argue on the 7th day. The Rishon, Shekana Vikne Bashalit Bolomo. On the 2nd day, Basheni Shechilik Masav Malach Aleim. On the 3rd day, Bashlishi Shegila Esrachach Masav Eich Table Adasa. Everything Rabbi Akiva said. Baravi Shabaracham Molabana Vasili Par Meovdeyan. Bachamishi Shabara offers for Dagim Lashabayach Lishmo. Bashishi Shigama Malach Malach Aleim. Everything is the same as Rabbi Akiva. But the last thing Rabbi Akiva said Shvi is because Yom Shekulo Shabbos in the future is going to be the 7th millennia of rest, but different. Bashvi al Shem Shabbos, because of the past, the same way the 6 days of creation. So then also the 7th day means the 7th day of my celebrations that Hashem stopped doing Malach on the 7th day of creation. Machlokis, this Mishili Yom Shabbos doesn't mean Elef Hashvi in the future, or does it mean the 7th day of creation? The Gemara finds also seemingly another reason to say this is Machlokis between Rabbi Nechemia and Rabbi Akiva. So far, the Gemara said the reason is because Rabbi Nechemia doesn't want to discern between the 6 and the 1. He wants everything to be consistently talking about the past, not about the future. But the Gemara finds another aspect where he might be arguing, because he couldn't say, like Rabbi Akiva, that the Shabbos is connected the 7th millennia. The Amar Rav Katina, Shita Alpha Shnei Avialma B'Chad Chorov. This is the famous, everybody knows, we don't know Rav Katina. He's the one who says that the world is going to exist for 6,000 years, and the 7th millennia is going to stop. Chorov, it's going to stop. Only Hashem is going to be Niskav. Niskav is when he's going to be high on that day. Vayamu is that day, so that's going to mean like that millennia. The same way you have that world is corresponding to Shabbos, the 6 days. So that day, on that day means that 1,000 years. So there's going to be 1,000 years that's going to be called Shabbos, Elef Hashvi. And Abaya Omar Trei Chorov, there's going to be 2,000 years that's going to be that matzav called Shabbos. Shenema Yechayenu Miyomayim. Hashem is going to revive us Miyomayim. The Gemara is dashing for 2 days. Yomahu is 1 day, Yomayim is 2 days. So now the Gemara says that Rabbi Akiva and Nechem are arguing this machlokas. Rabbi Akiva says that Mizmor Shel Yom Shabbos is corresponding to Shabbos of the future because he holds like Rav Katina that there's only one Shabbos, there's only one millennia. So you can say that Shabbos is our corresponding to the seventh millennia. But if you hold like Abaye that says that there are 2,000 years, so there wouldn't be a Shabbos that's connected one millennia. It would have been 2 days. It would have been an 8-day week. So since Rav Nechemia, that's what the Gemara is saying, that Rav Nechemia holds like Abaye, so he can't say that the Shabbos has to do, the seventh day of Shabbos of the week has to do with the future millennia because there is going to be 2 millennia. So there would have been, so to speak, 2 days. It would have been the 7th and the 8th day of the week would have been a kind of a Shabbos. So he doesn't agree to the whole concept, and therefore he says that it's corresponding to the 7th day of creation. And just to point out again that really Reb Nechemia himself said in the Gemara before, we would have said he could agree that there's a 7th millennia. He just wants to keep that the Shir Shel Yom should be consistent, talking about the 7 days of creation, not because he doesn't agree that there's a 7th millennia. But the Gemara seems to say that there's another reason why he doesn't hold of it, because he holds that there are 2 millennia. The Achronim talk about the problem that I'm expressing, that the Gemara seems to be saying 2 different things. The Achronim talk about it. First, the Gemara said that Nechemia doesn't want to say it's the future because he wants to be consistent talking about the 7 days of creation. And then the Gemara says because he doesn't hold of it, he can't hold of it because he holds that there are 2 millennia that are going to be Shabbos. That was all about the Shir Shel Yom of the weekdays. And now the Gemara continues to tell us the Shir Shel Yom of the Musaf of Shabbos. The Musaf de Shabbat HaMayu. What did they say about the Korban Musaf? It means what we do on Shabbos, the minute that everybody says, Hayom Shabbos Kodesh, that's the Shir of the Tamid Shal Shachar. That's the Shir of the morning Tamid of Shabbos. But the Gemara says that the Musaf of Shabbos had a different Shir. What do they say about the Musaf? Amar Rav and by Rav, Amar Rav, Hazivlach. Hazivlach is a Rashi Tevos, an acronym for the Parshas Hazinu. The first Hey is Hazinu, and then Zayin, Yud, Vav, Lamed, Chaf. They all are different psukim, the beginning of psukim, and how you divide Parshas Hazinu. They're like 6 aliyahs, we would say. And that's what the Gemara is going to say soon, that you do divide Hazinu according to the 6 aliyahs that it says over here. And the Gemara says that they read Parshas Hazinu. And so far, Bekitzer, what the Gemara says here is that what was the shir of the Korban Musaf of Shabbos? The answer is Parshas Hazinu, more or less. We'll see in more detail soon. And the Rishonim talk about what does this Rashi Teva stand for. Rashi over here tells us, and the other This is right. It reads on. You have here on the side. It's already on the screen. Hazinu. That's the Hazinu. Zachor. Yarkiveyu. Vayar. Lule. It's not on. Sorry. It should have been on. Okay. I'm sorry about that. The screen wasn't on in the room over here.
It's on.
No, I'm saying on our screen it's on, but it's not on in the room over here, and I don't know why it's not going on. Oh, now it's not. Now it's getting on, I think. Okay. I don't know. Okay. So that's the antithesis over here. You see Zinu, Zechor, Yakiveyu, Vayar, Lule, and Ki. So that's going to be Azivlach. And it's saying Parshas Azinu divided into 6, and we'll see soon how they divided it. It has power. You see how it has power, but something's not happening. Okay, the Gemara continues. I'm sorry, 1 second, please. The same way they divided over here, we'll see how they divided soon. So too in the Beis HaKnesses, means in Shul and Parshas Azinu. When we read Parshas Azinu, how do you divide the aliyahs? The way it says over here, as the Kohen gets Azinu, and then Zechor is for Levi, Yisrael, and you get 6 aliyahs over here. Of course, Shabbos you have to have 7 aliyahs. So Rashi says that the 7th aliyah is going to be the rest of the parsha. That's going to be the 7th aliyah. And here it's also divided. In the Beis HaMikdash it also was divided. We don't know yet how. We'll see soon. The Gemara continues. This is also Tam Shebein Arbaim. The Mincha said the Shabbat Tamayim. What did they say on Shabbos Mincha? Shabbos Mincha means that the afternoon Tamid is the Korban Tamid Shal Shachar, Tam Shebein Arbaim. So we said that Mizmor Shel Yom Shabbos was the morning Tamid, and Musaf we said was Hazinu. And what do they do for the Tam Shebein Arbaim? Just to point out that on a regular day, let's say Yom Rishon, Yom Sheni, Yom Shlishi, whatever we had on top of the page, that there was a Shir Shel Yom, it was also for the Tam Shebein Arbaim. They did the same shir 2 times. They did it for the morning, they did it again for the afternoon. But over here, the Gemara says they made a special shir for Mincha of Shabbos. Also, Rosh Hashanah, we saw that the Talmud Shel Shachar was the regular weekday shir, whatever Rosh Hashanah came out on. And the Talmud Shel Bein Arbaim, the Mincha, they made Mizmor Chavtes, 29. Here also on Shabbos, they made a special shira for the Talmud Shel Bein Arbaim. And what is that? Am Rabbi Yochanan, Az Yashir, Umicha Mocha, Vaz Yashir. Rashi says Az Yashir means Az Yashir Moshe, and Shira Sayam of Parshas B'Shalach, but they didn't do the whole thing, they only did half of it. And then Micha Mocha, Beilam Hashem Micha Mocha, and the Davar Kodesh, which is the middle, that was a different one, section 2. And then Az Yashir doesn't mean again Az Yashir Moshe. Rashi says that means Az Yashir Yisrael, which is a pasuk, which is a couple of psukim in the Parshas has Chukas, where it talks about the shir Az Yashir Yisrael, as a shir Azos Ali Be'er Anula. They said a shir about the water, the Be'er Shel Miriam, and they said a song over there. And that's the song that they said in the third section. First section is Az Yashir Moshe, half of the Shira Sayam. The second section is Micha Mocha of Shira Sayam, Parshas B'Shalach. And then the third section was Az Yashir Yisrael of Parshas Chukas. And then there was a question that goes back about both two things we spoke about. We spoke about Parshas Azinu, and we spoke about Az Yashir. When we said Parshas Azinu was divided into 6, and we said Az Yashir is divided into 3, did they do that all in one Shabbos? It's possible that each Shabbos they said the whole Parshas Azinu, and also they did Az Yashir, Micha Mocha, and Az Yashir Yisrael, but they just divided it. Rashi says they divided it with, maybe they made I don't know how you say music, if you make a division, then you start again. They made 3, Rashi says maybe they changed the tune, they changed the instruments, maybe they made afsaka, they blew trumpets in between to make a different presentation, whatever, 3 presentations, but they were all the same Shabbos. Or, no, it means that there was a cycle of different Shabbosos. Parshas Azinu would be spread out over 6 Shabbosos. They would only do one section on a Shabbos. Next Shabbos, they would do the second section. Like we said before, Zivlach, Yad Azinu, and then after that was Zechor, Yemos Olam, that would be Shabbos number 2. Shabbos number 3 would be Arkiveyu. And so too, Az Yashir and Micha Mocha, and one Shabbos they would only do by Talmud Shel Bein Arbaim, they would do only the first half of Az Yashir till Micha Mocha. Next week they would do Micha Mocha till the end. The third Shabbos they would do Az Yashir Yisrael Parshas Chukas. That's the 2 studies the Gemara has, both by Azinu and by Az Yashir, but they all said on the same on each Shabbos, or they were divided into many Shabbosos. Tashma, the Gemara brings a brayso said the Tanya Amar of Yossi Asher Rishon and Meres Achas Shniach Chazer Shtein. By the time that they finished the first, means Parshas Azinu 1 time, they finished Parshas Az Yashir 2 times. Why is that? Shamilah called Shabbat v'Shabbat Amrichad Ramilah. Here you can see that he divided it into Shabbosos. That means that Azinu was a 6-week cycle in order to get the whole Azinu, and Az Yashir was a 3-week cycle to get the Az Yashir, Micha Mocha, Az Yashir. So by the time you did 1 cycle of Azinu, of the Korban Musaf, you did 2 cycles of the Mincha, which was only took 3 weeks. So you see that the way that we divide Azinu was 6 weeks. The way we divide Az Yashir is 3 weeks. It isn't all said on every week. And that's the maskana. And just to point out, what's the get to us right now is that on Shabbos, Parshas Azinu, we divided according to Hazivlach. And just to sum up what we know about the Shir Shel Yom, the Shir Shel Yom says up here about the Korban Tamid, that the same Shir both in the morning and the afternoon, it went according to the day of the week. Shabbos is an exception. Over there was a special one for the morning and the afternoon. In the morning was going to be Mizbeach Shel Yom HaShabbos, the Talmud Shel Bein Arbaim was going to be Az Yashir, and Micha Mocha Az Yashir, a cycle of 3 weeks. And the Musaf was the Parshas Azinu divided into 6 weeks. We saw also about Rosh Hashanah that it had the Mizmor of the morning was the regular Mizmor, whatever day of the week it came out to. The Musaf of Rosh Hashanah was Harninu Lalim Uzeinu, that's 81. And the Korban Talmud Shel Bein Arbaim, which got mixed up one time, was the 29, Chavtes, because Kol Hashem Yachil Midbar. That seems to sum up the sugya of Shir Shel Yom. Just interesting thing that the custom, I don't know, maybe Ashkenaz, maybe the next part is different. When do you say Mizbeach Shel Yom HaShabbos? You have Shachris, Kriyas Torah, Musaf. When do you say Mizbeach Shel Yom HaShabbos? No. That's nothing to do with. You do Shir Shel Yom. So Nisach Sfarad says it before Kriyas Torah, which is very nice because after Shachris, the Mizbeach Shel Yom HaShabbos is the Shir of Shachris. It's not the Shir of Musaf. Musaf was Azinu. So Nisach Ashkenaz, they say Mizmashil Yom HaShabbos after Musaf. It's very strange. You do Shachris, then you do Musaf, then you do the Sheish Yom of Shachris. Very strange. It would be nicer to do it the way Nusach Sfar does, that they do Mizmashil Yom HaShabbos right after Shachris. That's the place that it belongs. And how about Rosh Chodesh? What do you do Rosh Chodesh? So Rosh Nafshi is the one of Musaf. So that's not good. They should do it after Musaf. Some places they do too. They do on Rosh Chodesh, they do also the weekday, the weekday one, whatever day of the week it is, which would be Shachris, and then Musaf. So they should do, if they do it organized, they would do after Shachris, you do the whatever the weekday is, Yom, whatever the day of the week it is, then after Musaf, you say Baruch Nafshi. Okay. Now we go on to a new sugya. And the Gemara, Rashi says the reason why the sugya is coming up now is because the Gemara is going to talk. It said in the Mishnah that when they were in Yavne, that originally the Sanhedrin is in Dishkas HaGozis in the Beis HaMikdash, and then it says when they're in Yavne after the Chorban they went to Yavne. So that's going to come up soon. The Gemara is going to talk about the Sanhedrin traveling from one place to another place, and then certain times they were in Yavne. Because of that, the Gemara brings a previous sugya, not about the Golas going from place to place, not about Sanhedrin going from place to place, but the Shechina going from place to place. It means when the Shechina left the Beis HaMikdash by the Chorban Bayis Rishon, so it's going to say now that it didn't leave at one time. Rashi says that the Shechina didn't want to leave. So even though there were sins and the Chorban had to come, but Hashem was difficult for him to leave, and he tried to stall, and maybe they're going to do tshuva. So the Shechina left in stages, slowly. And then the Gemara is going to say later on that also Sanhedrin also left in stages, and has something that corresponds with each other. The Gemara doesn't say what the correspondence is. What's the correlation between the leaving of the Shechina in the first Beis HaMikdash and the leaving of the Sanhedrin in the second Beis HaMikdash? Rashi points out that the Psukim are going to talk about the leaving of the Shechina in slow stages by the Chorban Bayis Rishon, and then it's going to bring down also that the Golas left slowly in different places, not because they were doing it slowly, because they were forced to go from place to place probably, and over there it says that was in the Bayis Sheni. So I don't know what the correspondence is, but it does put it together. Get it on the screen over here. Amar Rav Yehuda. That's the last narrow line. Amar Rav Yehuda bar Idi. Amar Rav Yochanan. That's in the middle lines over here. The Shechina left in 10 stations, 10 travelings. That's Psukim. We'll see the Psukim soon. It's going to be Drash. It's not going to be open Psukim. Some of them are going to might be open Psukim. Some of them are going to be Drash. And corresponding to them, the Sanhedrin also in the Bayis Sheni, when it was going exiled, it was exiled in 10 stages. But that's Gemara. That's a Masorah. That's no Psukim, of course. It's in the Bayis Sheni. So that's going to be a Masorah. And now it starts about the Shechina, and then the bottom of the page we'll continue with the Sanhedrin. There are Psukim that show that the Shechina traveled in 10 stages. Mikaporis, the Kruv. The Shechina was always on the Kaporis. That's what it's supposed to be. Like it says, Ala Kaporis, Mibench Ner Kruvim, that's where the Shechina always resided in the Mishkan and the Beis HaMikdash. But then when it started moving, so moved to the Kruv. Rashi says that the Kruv means that besides the Aron that had the Kaporis with the two Kruvim, that was part of the Aron, it were also, Shlomo Melech made two statues, so to speak, two big 10 amas tall statues that were also called Kruvim. And Rashi says that the Shechina went from the Kaporis to one of the Kruvim. The Pashup Pshat, you can say not only that, you can say that the Rabbi Hanan sees that means the Kruvim on the Aron, that usually the Shechina was Bein Shnei Kruvim, and then it went on top of the Kruv. That's also possible Pshat. Rashi doesn't say that. Rashi says the Kaporis the Kruv means to one of the Kruvim, those big 10 amas Kruvim that were in the Beis HaMikdash.
On the back.
On the sides.
Not behind
I don't recall that it's behind. I don't recall that. The next two words they take out, so we'll take it out. And the next one, Mikruv Lemiftam. After the Kruv, the next station, the next traveling, that the Shechina went from top of the Kruv to the threshold of the Beis HaMikdash, by the doorway, going out. The next one is Mimiftan Lachatzer. We'll read the way the Gemara says it. The Gemara is a little different order, but we'll just read the Gemara. From the threshold, then the Shechina went to the courtyard. The next one is Michatzer LeMizbeach. After that, the Shechina went from the Chatzer to the Mizbeach Achitzon, and that's where the Shechina stayed. And then the Mizbeach Lagag, and then to the roof of the Beis HaMikdash L'chora. And the Gemara changes around these three because the Gag should have been closer. After the Miftan, after the threshold, to the Gag, and then to the Mizbeach, and then to the Chatzer. I'm sorry, Gag, Chatzer, and then Mizbeach. So he changes it around. He puts the Gag before the Chatzer. But we'll do the Gemara the way it says it. And then after the roof, the Gag, L'choma, then to the wall. Rashi says the wall of the Azara, the wall of the wall around the courtyard, and then Michom La'ir, and then outside, further out into the city of Yerushalayim, away from the Beis Hamikdash, Umayir Lahar, and then from there to a mountain. Rashi says Har Zaysim, going further away, and then Umihar Lamidbar, then to the desert, and then in Midbar also Yeshua Lamakom. But the last traveling, that's when the Shekhinah left. It left and it went to Shemaim. That's what it seems to say. Bimkoma. The next couple of words, it says, just trying to get the right size here. It says here, Shenema. They take out this psukim because the Gemara is going to dash, the more than dash any psukim yet. The Gemara is going to say the list of drushes now. So they take out these next couple of words because it's going to be later. It's not here. Shenem, whatever. Takes out these Shenemar. Elech Vashuv Makom. We will come back to that later. Now the Gemara starts dashing. We have already the 10 stations. Just to read it out, it was from the Kaparas to the Kruv, to the Mifton, to the Chotzer, to the Mizbeach, to the Gag, to the Choma, to the city, to the mountain, to the Midbar, and then El Makoma. That's 10. And now the Gemara is going to dash all of them from Sukkim. Some of them are going to be simple, some of them are going to be more of a drash. The first one is Kaparas to Kruv. And then again, we're going to take out these words, Mikruv L'Kruv. The first will take it out. That's the count wouldn't be good also. So Kaparas L'Kruv, how do you know? And also Mikruv L'Miftan. That two stations, two movings. One was to the Kruv, second one was from there to the threshold. That's the pasuk where it says that that's where the Shekhinah is supposed to be. The Shekhinah is supposed to be Me'ala Kaporis. That's where it always was. But you can skip the next words. Skip these words if that's okay. This one we skip. That's not supposed to be in the Gemara. This is the pasuk in Yecheskel, and that's what it says over there, that the glory of the Hashem, the Shekhinah, it came up off the Kruv that it was on. So Agav, you see that it was on the Kruv. It shouldn't have been there. It should have been on the Kaporis. But the pasuk takes it for granted that the Shekhinah was on the Kruv, and it went from the Kruv to the Miftan Abayis, to the threshold. So you see that it went from the Kaporis to the Kruv, and from there to the Miftan. The next rush is going to be Miftan L'Chotzer. How do you know the next stage was the Chotzer? Also a pasuk in Yecheskel. Over there it talks about the Miftan earlier, before the Gemara's pasuk. It talks about the threshold, and it says Vayimolei Habayis Es Anan L'Chotzer Mola Es Noga Kvod Hashem, that the house got filled of the cloud, and the Chotzer was filled with the shine of the glory of Hashem. So the Shekhinah went now to the Chotzer. V'Chotzer, that's the word. V'Chotzer Mola Es Noga Kvod Hashem. You see now that the Shekhinah was in the Chotzer. So it went from the Miftan to the Chotzer. The next stage is the Chotzer LaMizbeach. Now this is a drash, but it doesn't have to do with Pasuk in Yecheskel over there. In Yecheskel, it is talking about the Shekhinah slowly leaving. As Pashut in the Pasuk in Yecheskel, Yecheskel had a vision that he saw the Shekhinah leaving. And some of the Pasukim we had, it says over there. So you saw the Kruv, and you saw the Miftan, and you saw the Chotzer. Those things it says in Yecheskel. The next Pasuk is a drash that it says in Amos, Hashem Nisav Ala Mizbeach. I saw Hashem standing on the Mizbeach. Usually the Shekhinah is not on the Mizbeach. The fact that it says it's on the Mizbeach, so you see that there was also a station that the Shekhinah stopped on the Mizbeach. Rashi says that the Psukim, where it doesn't say any kind of an order, we're just going to fill it in according to the Derech Yitziyasa, the way that the Shekhinah would leave from the Beis HaMikdash, going outward. So the Mizbeach was after the Chotzer. The next stage is when Mizbeach L'Gag, Tichsiv Tov L'Sheves L'Pinas Gag. This is mamash not in the Seder of the Beis HaMikdash. In fact, this pasuk initially that talks about it's better to be on the corner of a roof than to be with the Eishes Medanim, to be with a bickering wife. Is and the Beis Chaver, Rashi says then the pasuk means that even if she's friendly with another man, so it's better to be on top of the roof, by the corner, dangerous place to be on the corner of the roof. Eishes Medanim. Eishes Medanim. The pasuk says Beis Chaver. The pasuk says Tov L'Shevas L'Pinas Gag, the Eishes Medanim U Beis Chaver. So whatever the Pashup Shah of the pasuk is, Rashi says here that it means Beis Chaver, that Am Yisrael was friendly, partying, but connecting to Avodah Zarah. So it's better that if they brought in Avodah Zarah into the Beis HaMikdash, so Hashem went to the roof. Like a husband would go to the roof, not to be in a wife with a wife who's bickering, like Am Yisrael was a bickering wife. And Beis Chaver, the way Rashi learns, I don't think it's a Pashup Shah, but Rashi says Beis Chaver, that she's hanging around with Avodah Zarah. So again, it doesn't say any order over here, but the fact that that's the way to leave. The Gra would arrange the psukim differently, that the first way to go out is onto the Gag, and then to go further into the Chotzer, onto the Mizbeach. But the way Gemara says, after the Mizbeach, the next place to go is onto the roof of the Beis HaMikdash. And what do you see? The pasuk says it's better to be on the roof than to be with a to be with the wife who's undeserving. The next station, Rigag Lechoma. Then we find also that the Shekhinah is on the wall. And again, it's not going to be a pasuk that has to do with the order over here. It's also a pasuk in Amos. Hashem nitzav al chomas anach. Hashem was standing on a chomas anach. Anach, they say over there, means a plumb line. That means a straight wall. But uviyado anach. But that's not the point over here. We just want that Hashem is standing on a wall. So that's a further station than being on the roof. So that was the next station. Hashem went to the wall of the Azorah. After that, Hashem went further out into Yerushalayim. How do you see? So here it has a pasuk that some of Farshim take out. This pasuk is very big drash. Called Hashem Le'ir Yikra, that Hashem is calling to the city. That's a hard drash to say that you see Hashem is out in the city. But they say the next pasuk might show everything. So two stations now we're going to dash in, from the wall to the city, and from the city to the mountain. What do you see? Back to Yecheskel. It says here the glory of Hashem went from the city, so you see it's in the city. So that would be a drash to say that the Shekhinah was in the city also. Before we saw it was on the wall. Now you see it's in the city. So that would be a source to see that the Shekhinah went from the wall to the city. And then it says he went from the city to the mountain, which is east of the city, which is Har HaZeisim. And then the next station was Mihal Midbar. Again, a pasuk in Mishlei, there's no shaykhis in the Pashup Pshat, but you see that it's better to go to the Midbar than to be with the Eishes Medonim. Yechsiv Tov Sheves Be'eretz Midbar. Me'eishes Medonim V'Kos. It's better to be in a desert than to be with a bickering wife and frustration. So the Shekhinah went to the Midbar. That's the next station to go after the mountain to go to the Midbar. And then the last one, then Hashem had no choice. Then the Shekhinah left and went to his place. This also is a pasuk in Hosea, not in the Seder of any order, but that the Shekhinah, the husband goes back. I'm going to go back. I think also it's not the Pashup Pshat over there. I don't recall. But Eilach Hashuva El Makomi. So those are the 10 stations that the Shekhinah left. Rashi says the whole time the Shekhinah was trying to wait. Maybe they'll do tshuva. They didn't do tshuva. Then the Shekhinah finally left by the Chorban Bayis Rishon. Amr Rabbi Yochanan. The last place Hashem stayed was in the Midbar before he left. Amr Rabbi Yochanan. Shisha Chadashim Yisakva Shekhinah L'Yisrael Ben Midbar. Hashem Yachzru B'tshuva. Hashem waited. The Shekhinah waited 6 months in the Midbar before it left. Maybe Am Yisrael will still do tshuva. It seems the other stations were not so long, but this was a very long station. Hashem stayed there for 6 months. Since after all that they still didn't do tshuva, that's some kind of a curse. Tipach Hatzman or Tipach Kufan, some say that something that they should rot. So the eyes of the wicked are going too long, and escape is lost from them, and their hope is going to be like an Agmas Nefesh. So it seems that the pasuk is dashing that Hashem was hoping for them, were longing for them to come, that they should do tshuva, but that tikva got lost. No more escape for them, and the tikva, maybe the tikva that Hashem was hoping for them, maybe, I'm not clear what the drash is over here, but those were the 10 stations, and the last station Hashem even waited 6 months and they didn't do tshuva, then Hashem finally left. And then, as the Brisa said earlier, bottom line, Uchenegdan, Golsa Sanhedrin, Migomorah. And corresponding to those stations that Hashem left, the Shekhinah left the Beis HaMikdash. So in the Bayis Sheni, the Sanhedrin also had to go to 10 Golios, 10 exiles. And now Migomorah, that's not a pasuk at all. That's going to be a Masorah. We know the 10 places where the Shekhinah went to, and now it says what they are. Lishkas HaGozis. Of course, that's where they're supposed to be. The Beis HaMikdash is supposed to be in the Lishkas HaGozis, and then from there they went LaChanus. The word Chanus is a store. Chanuyos, some say, and that's a place where she says in Har HaBayis, which we don't know where that is. We don't know where it is. But there was a place in Har HaBayis, and Rashi says that the Gemara in Sota talks about they didn't stay in Lishkas HaGozis because they weren't able to control anymore Am Yisrael. They weren't able to judge capital cases that they really were Chayiv Misa. They weren't able to do that. So they went out of Lishkas HaGozis. They went into a place which was still in Har HaBayis. I don't think there were stores in Har HaBayis. It's not a place to have stores in Har HaBayis. So whatever it is, it's a place called Chanuyas. And then after that, they went to Yerushalayim. They went out into the city. They moved out of that place of Har HaBayis into Yerushalayim. Then Yerushalayim liyavne, and here we have Yavne. Rashi says the whole story comes in because of our Mishnah spoke about Sanhedrin being in Yavne. So here it says that they had to leave. It doesn't say why. What the historical case was that they had to leave Yerushalayim and go to Yavne. Well, we do know that. Well, of course we know that. That's the case where it says in Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai that he, by the Chorban, he asked the permission that Tein liyavne v'chachameha. So the Chorban over there, maybe the Chachamim already went to Yavne. Maybe they escaped Yerushalayim earlier before the actual destruction. But they did leave to Yavne. Anamid Beis. Umiyavna leUsha. After that, there was another station to go to Usha. Usha leYavna. They went back. According to Agamara's Girsa, they went back to Yavna again, and then again Yavna leUsha. So it was Yavna Usha, and then Usha leShfaram, city called Shfaram. From Shfaram to Beis Shorim, from Beis Shorim to Tzipori, from Tzipori to Tveria. So that's going to be 10 stations. Let's go over them again. There was going to be to the Chanuyos, to Yerushalayim, to Yavne Usha, Shfaram, Beis Shorim, Tzipori, Tveria. That's 10 stations that go. That's Sanhedrin exile. And then the Gemara says, Tveria Amukim Mikulan. Tveria happens to be the lowest one. Tveria is a low place. And they came to the lowest stage, their status also was lowest when they were in Tveria. Shenema v'shafat v'yeretz daberi, you're low and you speak from the ground like someone that's low down under the ground, and when he talks, he hears a voice coming out of the ground. But that's the lowest place. Rabbi Elazar argues says only 6. He doesn't say what they are. The Gemara till now listed 10. Now the Gemara says he says only 6. He's going to dash in the pasuk. He's not going to tell us what they are. But for some reason he doesn't count all 10 of them. He means the pasuk the high city became lowered. Those who sat on high, they became lowered. Heshach means to be low. Yashpilani, they are lowered and lowered. Ad eretz yagian. I'm sorry. Yashpilani yashpila ad eretz, that is lowered until the ground. Yagian ad afar, and it reaches till the dust. And this pasuk has 6 lashonos, 6 terms of going down. Rashi tells us what they are. Sheheshach is 1, Yashpilana is 2, Yashpila is 3, ad eretz is 4, Yagiana is 5, and ad afar is 6. So 6 lashonos of going lower and lower. That's corresponding to the 6 galuyos that the Sanhedrin had to leave, and he doesn't tell us what they are. But the last one was Tveria, like the Gemara says before, that it's the lowest one. They're going to be redeemed from Tveria. Shake yourself off from the dust, sit up, erect yourself and sit. So the lowest place, also they point out that the pasuk we brought, the end of the pasuk has to do with the offer. It says at the end of the pasuk, it says Umayafar Heshach Imrosech. That's the end of the pasuk. The Bach brings it down. So the place where there's offer, that's where you're going to shake off the dust. So Tveria is the last station, and that's where the Gul is going to come from. So the Gemara we just learned was a Garata that had to do with Yavne, and Agav the Gemara would also about the Shechina also leaving in 10 stages. If that's good, then we continue to the next Mishnah. Amar B'Shul Ben Korcha. V'ozo so Iskei Yochim and Zakai Shafilu Rosh Bezdin B'Chol Makam Shelo Yihu Eidim Holchin El Makam Abad. We spoke about the previous Mishnah. I spoke about the concept of Yochim and Zakai. The last one we had was about that you blow. What is the last one? The last one we had was that Eidim and Amin Cholamala during the Beis Hamikdash they didn't accept them because they didn't want to get wounded, messed up with the Shir Shal Yom. But the Rebbe Mazaki said after the Chol Beis Hamikdash there is no Shir. There's no reason not to accept Eidim the whole day. That was the last thing the Mishnah said about the concept of Yochim and Zakai. And now Bisham Lakorach was saying Va'odzos. There's another kind of Yochim and Zakai, which is the next one. And what is that? That wherever the Rosh Bezdin might be, the Eidim don't have to go to him. The Rosh Bezdin is like the Nasi, the one who's on top of the Sanhedrin. And we said before, he's the one who says Mekudesh. Rosh Bezdin only Mekudesh. Everybody says Mekudesh. He's a vital part of the Kiddush HaChodesh. But the Eidim, the Eidim are coming to testify. They saw the new moon. They don't have to find out where he is personally to go to him. They go to the Makam Abad. They go to the set place wherever the Sanhedrin is going to be. If it was Yavna, Usha, wherever it might be, and even if the Rosh Bezdin might be someplace else, they don't have to go after him to find him in order to testify before him. They go to the Makam Abad, the set place, and Rashi says a bigger chiddush that not only do they not have to follow him, the Sanhedrin themselves also could be Mekadesh HaChodesh even without him. Even though Lachatchil you do want the Rosh Bezdin to be part of the Kiddush HaChodesh ceremony, but if he's not there, they can do it without him. And the Gemara is going to talk about more details about that, I think. But right now, what the Gemara says is that the Eidim don't have to follow to go to where he is. The Gemara says a story. There was a woman who was summoned to Bezdin, a Meimar. He was the judge, and he lived in Ardor. And she was told to come to Ardor. There was some din Torah between her and somebody else, and she was told to come to a Meimar in Ardor. And then a Meimar happened not to be there. Meimar was in Mechuzah, wasn't in Ardor. So she was supposed to go to follow the Bezdin and appear in Mechuzah. but she didn't go. She didn't go. She didn't go. So he wrote a shamta, a nidoy. Someone doesn't listen to Bezdin, so the chayiv nidoy. The Bezdin subpoena somebody, they don't come, so they made a nidoy, a chayrim. So that's what happened to her, because she didn't come to the Bezdin. It seems that the Ramema usually was in Arda, and here he was in Amchuza. But the Mishnah says by us that the Rosh Bezdin, even if he happens to be traveling someplace, the Eidim go to that set place. So too, how come we don't say that the woman, even though she was subpoenaed to a din, she should go to the set place, and if the Dan is not there, right, she doesn't have to follow him. Just like the Eidim don't have to follow the Rosh Bezdin. Amalei, a member said to Ravashi, that's different. But there's a difference between the testimony of the Kiddush HaChodesh and this woman who's a lova. She's a borrower who somebody is demanding that she pay her debt. That the reason why we're lenient that the Eidim don't have to follow the Rosh Bezdin is because it's going to make it difficult for them. They're doing us a favor, so to speak. They don't have any personal gain about it. And I think that they saw the new moon, so they're coming distance in order to be able to say their testimony to the Bezdin. So if you're going to say they have to find where the Rosh Bezdin is, they're going to be running around more than they expected. So they're not going to want to come. Next time they're not going to look for the moon. They'll stay in their living room. They won't go to see the new moon. We won't have testimony. So we have to make it encouraging to them that it's not going to be so hard. So we say, go to the Makom Avad, even though our Bezdin is not there, it's not your business. But over here, that the woman was subpoenaed because she borrowed money and she's not paying. So every lova l'shmalva, a lova, the borrower is considered subject to the creditor. You borrowed money, you're an eved. So too, it seems that we know that she was a lova. The question is now, if she paid or not, whatever the case might have been. So she's meshubah to go to the malva. That's the halacha that I think, pretty sure that's the halacha that the malva could summon the lova to the bezdin of his city. And therefore, this woman who was a lova, she'd have to follow the bezdin. And if he happens not to be there, there's no reason that she doesn't have to follow further. Wherever the malva is summoning her to, she has to go. The rest of the sugya talks now about takanas of Rabbi Yochanan and Zakkai. We had already many. We're going to see that in our Masechta we have 7. And the Gemara is going to say there are 2 more takanas of Rabbi Yochanan and Zakkai, and the Gemara is going to fill us in on the rest of them. Tana Rabbanan, Ein Kohanim Rishon Lalos B'Sandalei L'Duchan. That the Kohanim, when they do Birchas Kohanim, they're not allowed to go up to the platform. Duchanim means a platform. They're not allowed to go up to the stage with their sandals. They have to take off the sandals. That's why we see the Kohanim, when they do Birchas Kohanim, they take off the shoes. It doesn't say here why. Rashi brings down the Gemara and Sota says the reason is because they might tie their if they're wearing shoes, it might be untied, they might tie it. And during Birchas Kohanim, they'll be busy tying their shoes. And someone's going to see that the Kohen who's standing up there is not doing Birchas Kohanim. And they say, because he's not really a Kohen. And they're going to be motzilaz on his lineage, that he's not really a Kohen. So they said no shoes. So that was a takana of Rabbi Yochanan and Zakkai. There must be something deeper than that also, but that's a superficial reason that the Gemara says. This is one of the 9. Here it tells us that the Rashi says there are 9 takanas of Rabbi Yochanan and Zakkai, and it only says 1. It only says this one about the shoes. It doesn't say what all 9 are. So now the Gemara is going to elaborate to tell us what the 9 takanas are. Shis, the high pirka, V'chada the pirka kama. 6 in our parak and 1 in the previous parak. So the 6, Rashi lists what they all are. I'll just read it out from Rashi. Maybe we can go to Rashi right here. Rashi here on the side, right opposite the Gemara, says what the 6 are. First of all, Chada Hai. The first one is the list one we just mentioned now about the sandals, that the Kohanim shouldn't do in sandals. And then there are another 5 we had already. One is that they blow on Shabbos, Rosh Hashanah, in the Makom HaBezdin. Also, that the Lul was taken all 7 days, Seichel HaMikdash, even though the rice is only the first day. And Yom HaNefkul also that the 16th of Nisan is Asat Tit Chadash. We had two pshatim over there, either because a Gzeira, the Beis Mikdash will be built, are still beating Chadash in the morning, or because with the rice it's also because Avad B'chlal. Also, Shimon Kavnei Kol Hayom, that after the whole Beis Mikdash you could accept the whole day because there's no chash that the shear is going to be miskalkal. There is no shear. And also that the Eidim don't have to go to the Rosh Bezdin. Our Mishnah we just had, they go to the Makom Avad, they don't have to go for searching for that Rosh Bezdin. That's altogether 6. And one more Rashi, the Pirkei Kama, and the one we had in the first parak, over there said that only Mechalal on Nisan and Tishrei. Over there says that during the Beis HaMikdash, the Eidim would Mechalal Shabbos to testify about the new moon on any month, because you had to have the Korban Musaf. So there was a reason to Mechalal Shabbos on any of the 12 months. But after the Korban, Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai said there's no Korban anymore. No reason to be Mechal Shabbos. Only Nisan and Tishrei because the Takana Samoa does to make sure that Pesach and Sukkot come out at the right time. So those are altogether 7. We have 7 Takanas of Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai. But he said in the Brisa that there are 9. So we're looking for 2 more. The Idach, another Takana of Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, the Tanya. Gersh and his guy was Manazet. Tzach Shiafish Rov Valakino. A ger, a convert that converts nowadays. Nowadays means Lo Beis HaMikdash. So the problem is that he's not bringing a korban. A ger is supposed to have circumcision and immersion and also a korban. And nowadays there's no korban. So the Brisa said that really, even though he can't bring the korban, at least he should designate the money for the korban. That when Mashiach is going to come, he'll have the money designated to bring that korban. Tzach Shiafish Rov Valakino. He has to separate that amount of money. Rov was a certain amount of money for his bird. He's chayiv to bring a bird for a korban, and that bird he can't bring it out of the Beis HaMikdash, out of the mizbeach, but at least he separates the money. And then the takana of Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai is going to be not to do it. The takana was to abolish that takana to separate the money. Amar Rav Shimon ben Elazar, Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, ubitla. Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai voted on it. It means he got together the Sanhedrin to vote on it, and he nullified that takana. Why? Because there's going to be a stumbling block that he can have money that's kodesh. We don't like having money that's designated for kabbonis. Someone might forget about it, misuse it. So it's better not to have the money. And when the Beis Mikdash will be built, to bring the korban, but don't try to be better by setting aside the money, because on the contrary, it might come out that the money is going to be misused and it'll be midla b'hektish. So that's already takana number 8, and we have 1 more to go. But this 1 more to go, we're not sure what it is. The Gemara is going to say 2 choices. Machlok is what the 9th one is. The Idach, Plukta, the Papa, Rav Nachman Yitzchak. The last one, the 9th one, the 9th takana of Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai is machlok is what it is. Rav Papa and Rav Nachman Yitzchak. What's that? Rav Papa Omer Kerem Revai, something about the 4th year fruit, which we'll see soon what that's all about. And Rav Nachman Yitzchak Omer Lashon Shel Zohar, something about the scarlet thread of Yom Kippur, which the Gemara will explain both of them. First, the Gemara says what they are, then the Gemara is going to say why they don't hold of each other. Rav Nachman Yitzchak Omer Rav Papa Omer Kerem Revai. What's Kerem Revai all about? What's the takana of Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai about Kerem Revai? The Tanya or the Tanan? Kerem Revai means the 4th year fruit. Machlok is neter Revai, Kerem Revai, that does it apply only to grapes or to all kinds of fruit trees? So on 3 years it's Ola, and the 4th year you take it to Yerushalayim. Eat it like Ma'aser Sheni. You eat it in Yerushalayim. So the food, Ma'aser Sheni or Kerem Revai, that is out of Yerushalayim, that's supposed to be brought to Yerushalayim. The pasuk says you have a choice that if it's too heavy, if it's too far, so you're allowed to transfer it onto money and bring the money to Yerushalayim and buy food over there that gets the kedusha of Ma'aser Sheni and Kerem Revai. But there was a takana with Rabbanan that if you live within a day's travel to Yerushalayim, don't redeem the Kerem Revai onto money and bring money, bring the actual fruit. It doesn't apply to Ma'aser Sheni, and it doesn't apply to Kerem Revai that's far away. But if it's within a day's travel, it's not so hard to come. So bring the actual fruit. The Gemara is going to say the reason is because we wanted Yerushalayim to be adorned with fruit. That it's a nice thing that people will come with fruit, and we'll see that the marketplaces they're not selling it really, but you'll see Yerushalayim full of fruit. That's a cover to Yerushalayim. So they made it don't redeem it. And they said,
why not?
It doesn't have to do with fruit. Ma'aser Sheni is not Afghan fruit. But here, Kerem Revai, that's a cover to Yerushalayim that it should be full of fruit. Kerem Revai, within a day's travel of Yerushalayim, you have to bring the actual Kerem Revai, not to redeem it. The Mishnah tells you what the boundary is of a day's travel on each side. Eilat. Now this is not going to be what we call Eilat, but there's a city called Eilat, Minha, Safon, some say Dorom, but it's not going to be a day's travel from Yerushalayim, so something else. Akraves, Minha, Dorom, some say Safon. Lud, Minha, Marav, that's going to be in the gate to us. Lud is a day's travel west of Yerushalayim, and Yarden Minha Mizrach, and the Yarden is a day's travel or less. But once you pass the Yarden, that's already more than a day's. You don't have to go bring the Kerem Revai. But anyway, those are the borders, the boundaries of a day's travel on all 4 sides of Yerushalayim. And if you have grapes or fruit that are growing within that area, you have to bring it to Yerushalayim. Why did they make such a takana to bring the fruit and not to be poded? In order to adorn the markers of Yerushalayim with fruit. Now we're going to say that this takana was abolished after the Churban. The Tanya, Kerem Hayalo, the Rabbi. Just trying to make it smaller to get it onto the screen. Kem hoida Rabbi Elazar b'mizrach Lud, b'tzad Kfar Tovi. Rabbi Eliezer, he had Kerem Ravai, he had a vineyard. That was the 4th year, and it was east of Lud. East of Lud means that it's between Lud and Yerushalayim. Lud is the west of Yerushalayim, and we said that that's the border, that's the boundary of a day's travel west of Yerushalayim. But he had it on the east of Lud. That means that it was within a day's travel. And that halach would be that you have to bring the actual fruits to Yerushalayim. But it wasn't easy. It wasn't practical for him to bring it. So he wanted to give it to somebody who's going to go. He wanted to be mafkir the fruit to Raniyim, that they should take it. They'll be happy to get it for free, and they'll take it to Yerushalayim. He couldn't go himself to bring the fruit, so he figured it'll be mafkir it, and therefore the people who will take it, they'll take it to Yerushalayim, and Allah will be fulfilled that you're not allowed to be poda the fruit within a day. Amrullah Talmid, that his disciples told him, Rebbe, your friends already voted on it and they permitted it. It means they abolished this takana. And the reason is because after the Churban, so then we don't need the Shvok Yerushalayim to be adorned. As Rashi says that the Goyim are there, we don't have to adorn it for the Goyim. It wasn't in its state that's supposed to be glorified. So the question is, who is this? Who is this? What are these people? The people who abolished this takana after the Churban, who was it? So this Gemara holds, Man Chavirecha B'Yochanan ben Zakkai. The Papa says that this Chaver, the friend of Rabbi Elazar, was Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai. He's the one who did it. This is going to be the 9th takana of Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, that you are allowed to redeem the Neter Avoy, the Kerem Avoy, even within a day's travel of Yerushalayim after the Churban. That was a Papa. Rav Nachman Yitzchak says that was not the 9th, because the 9th takana, the 9th takana is the following. Lashon Shel Zahoris, it was about the scarlet thread of Yom Kippur, the Tanya. Originally, they would tie the scarlet thread outside the ulam. The ulam is the antechamber of the Beis HaMikdash. They would hang it on Yom Kippur outside the ulam, and people would see if it became white. Hilbin, Hayusmechin, Hilbin, Hayuatsevin. If it got white, they were happy that they got a kapara, they got atonement. If it didn't get white, they were sad. And that wasn't good, that they should be said on Yom Kippur. We didn't want them to see it. So they made a takana. He doesn't say who. That's going to be who made this takana, doesn't say. It's kinu. They enacted that they should tie it inside. Don't tie it outside. Everyone sees it. Do it in the inside of the ulam so people don't see it. But it sits in Veron, and the people will still pick in. Someone will get there to see what's doing over there. They get white, and again, you bring out the news. And he'll be Yismechin, he'll be Yismechin. And if it will get white, they'd be happy. But if it was not white, they'd be sad. We didn't want it to be sad on Yom Kippur. So then, at Kinu, again, at Kinu doesn't say who. At Kinu, Yehu Koshin also Chetzi B'Sel V'Chetzi B'Inkarnav Shel Sar Mishtalech. Then they tied it in a place where people don't see it at all. The person who took the Sar Mishtalech out, he had the red scarlet thread on the animal, and he tied it over there by the tzuk, wherever he pushed off the goat. So nobody saw it until the next day. They found out if it got white or not. And he says that Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai is the one who made this takana, even though it doesn't say here who did it. He says it was Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai. So we have two pshatim already. What was the 9th takana? Some say that it was, Rav Papa says that it was about Kerem Ravai, that they didn't have to bring it to Yerushalayim within a day's travel, if after the Churban. And Rav Nachman Yitzchak said that it was not to leave the scarlet thread on the Beis HaMikdash, but to send it along with the Sar Mishtalech. Not everyone wants to know, why does each one not hold of the other one? Rav Nachman Yitzchak, my time along with Papa, why does Rav Nachman Yitzchak want to say that it was the issue of Kerem Ravai? Now, let's point out, it doesn't say either one, it doesn't say what it was, it just says somewhat, it doesn't say what it was. So Rav Nachman Yitzchak doesn't like how Rav Papa explained that on the second white line it says, they told, the Talmidim told Rabbi Eliezer that your friends voted that it's mutter. The Gemara says, how could you say that the friend of Rabbi Eliezer is Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai? Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai was the Rebbe of Rabbi Eliezer. He wasn't a friend. So you can't say that the friend is Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai. They wouldn't have called him that you're a friend. That's the Gemara's kasha. Was Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai the friend of Rabbi Eliezer? He was his Rebbe. The Gemara answers, V'idach, the Papa will say that it's true, he was his Rebbe, but Talmidim are not allowed to say to the Rebbe, your Rebbe. It's not that cheres for a Talmud to say to a Rebbe, your Rebbe, your Rebbe. The Talmud has to know that the Rebbe is that top. He doesn't have to talk about his Rebbe. It's true, the Rebbe has a Rebbe also, but it's not that cheres. Even the Talmidim have since they were Talmidim, it's not their cheres to say to their Rebbe, your Rebbe. So he calls him your friend. No, he says your friend. As far as the Talmidim are concerned, the Rebbe and the Rebbe's Rebbe, it's all the same. That he can call him your friend. The Rebbe, the Talmud could call his Rebbe's Rebbe the friend of the Rebbe, not the teacher of the Rebbe. So that's why they told Rabbi Lezer, your friends, even though Rabbi Yochanan Zaki is Rebbe, you can call him your friend. That's the derech of the Talmud to the Rebbe is to not talk about he has a Rebbe on top of him. So that's machlokes if that story was Rabbi Yochanan Zaki or not. How come Rav Papa doesn't want to say like Rav Nachman Yitzchak about the story about the scarlet thread? Rav Papa might tell Rav Nachman Yitzchak that the issue of Rabbi Yochanan Zaki was that he made the takana not to hang the thread outside. Amalacha that it can't be Rabbi Yochanan Zaki. Isaac that Rabbi Yochanan Zaki, he married Rabbi Yochanan Zaki, and we have a relationship as a Horus. They put in the word Malbin. Here says in the Brisa that during the time that it happened, the takana, sometimes it turned white, sometimes it didn't, and therefore they wanted to make that it should be out of sight. But the Gemara is going to say that this didn't happen in the time when Rabbi Yochanan Zaki was the leader. The Gemara is going to make a cheshbon that the last 40 years of the Beis HaMikdash, it didn't turn white at all. We have this Gemara in Yuma that it didn't turn white at all, and the Gemara is going to make a cheshbon that the Rabbi Yochanan Zaki in those 40 years, he was the stage of him being a leader started within those 40 years. That means that during his reign, so to speak, it never turned white. Rabbi Yochanan Zaki was even less than the last 4. He started his reign. I don't know the word is reign. His leadership. He started his leadership less than 40 years before the Churban, and the whole last 40 years of the Churban, it never turned white. And this Bryce is mashma, sometimes it turns white. So that's why we say that what Nachman Yitzchak says, it couldn't be that this leader who made this takana was Rabbi Yochanan Zaki, because in his days it didn't turn white. That's the Gemara says we know here. But Tanya, close enough so Rabbi Yochanan Zaki may have Shana. Altogether he lived 120 years. Rabbi Yochanan Zaki lived 120 years. Mem Shana Aslik Prakmatya, 40 years business. Mem Shana Lamad, 40 years he learned. Mem Shana Limit, 40 years he taught. Means the years. That's what it sounds like. I don't know what to say. Some say other pshatim, but it's not other drushes, but the pshat that says that he did business. So limed means his leadership was only his last 40 years of his life. Tanya, Mem Shana Kodem Shenach Rabbayis Lo Hayalosh Nishal Zaharos Malbim. The last 40 years before the Churban, the scarlet string never turned white. Elamadim, it always stayed red. Utanan, one more factor. We find Rabbi Yochanan Zaki making the kodesh after the Churban. So we know that he lived after the Churban. We know that he was a leader for the last 40 years of his life. That means that he became leader within the 40 years of the Churban, because you see that he lived even after the Churban. So his leadership years were less than the last 40 years of the Beis HaMikdash. And it also says that they never turned white during those 40 years. That's why it can't be that he was the one who made these takanas, because he didn't live at a time when sometimes it turned white. That's what Nachman Yitzchak says. That's what the Papa says. So I can't say that that was the kind of somebody else. But the Gemara answers, if Nachman Yitzchak says it could be as Yochanan Zaki, and I'm asking that it was not in his leadership years, it was in his learning years, like it says, Prakmatya, then Lamad, then Limit. It's in the years of Lamad. Isaka was not yet the leader, but he made a takana even when he was not leading. Like it says, Osam Abam Shana the Lamad, during those 40 years that he was learning, he was a Talmud sitting before his Rebbe. It's true, he's only a Talmud. He says something. He's the one who had the idea not to leave the Lashon Shal Zoros outside. And they liked what he said. The Rebbe's, the Rabbanim liked what he said, and the Kaveh, Rabbe Bishmei, and his Rebbe established a takana in his name, that even though he was a Talmud only, and he didn't have the authorization to make such a takana, but the Rebbe did authorize it in his name, because he was the one who thought of it. So it could be that it's called Rabbi Yochanan Zaki. So the Gemara went to the trouble to tell us all the 9 takanas of Rabbi Yochanan Zaki. That's the end of the sugya today. And just to sum up what we had, we spoke about the Shir Shal Yom for each day of the week, and it said how come each day corresponds to that Shir Shal Yom. 7th day is Machlokes. If Abu Kiva says it has to do with Mizbeach Shir Lasad Lo Yom Shekol Shabbos, and if the Nechemia says it has to do with the Yom Shabbos, the 7th day, because 2 reasons the Gemara says. One is he wants it to be consistent, and also maybe he holds that there were 2,000 years that's going to be Shabbos, not only 1,000 years. After that, the Gemara says the Musaf of Shabbos is the one says Yichayenu B'Yomayim. That's the pasuk the Gemara brings, 2 days. And the next Gemara says the Musaf of Shabbos is Hazinu, divided into 6 weeks. the Talmud shall bein Arbaim of Shabbos is as Yashir, Michamocha, and then as Yashir Yisrael divided into 3 weeks. Then the Gemara goes into the 10 Masos of the Shechina, that slowly the Shechina left by Chorban Bayis Rishon until it came to the Midbar, where they stayed for 6 months, and then it left, and the Mapach Nefesh, that it gave up, that Am Yisrael didn't do Tshuva. Corresponding to that, the Sanhedrin also was exiled in 10 stations by the Chorban Bayis Sheni, and it talks about Yavne. That's why we came into our subject over here, and it has the list of the 10. Some say it's only 6 because of the pasuk of Eishach Yoshvei Moron, and Tver is the last one, and that's the lowest. And from there is going to be shaken off the dust and going to rise. After that, it says Rechem Zakai's Takana also was that the Eidim don't have to follow the Rosh Bezdin; they go to the Bezdin, and as Rashi says, the Bezdin could be Mekadosh Chodesh even without the Rosh Bezdin, even though L'Chatchila we would want him. The Gemara says this is after by Kiddush Chodesh because we don't want to trouble the Eidim, and they're not going to want to come again. But if there's a Loba and a Malva, then the Loba does have to follow the Bezdin of the Malva, even if it's not in the regular place. After that, the Gemara listed out the 9 Takanas of Rebbe and Zakai. Seven of them we learned by us, and we're missing 2. And one was about, that's the Mishnah say I have already 6. And one is about also in Sota that it says about the Kohanim not to wear shoes by Birchas Kohanim. And then there are another 2. One is about the Ger, even though he should have really ideally separate the money for his carbon that he has to bring when the base Mikdash is built, but don't do that because it might be misused, the meal and the money. And the last one is a questionable. Either it's the one about being able to bring Kerem Rabbi to go for the Rabbi within a day's travel after the Chorban, because it's not necessary to be Ma'ateh the Shvaki Yerushalayim. And that the Chiddush was that they'll call him to Rabbi Lezer, your friend, Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, even though he really was his Rebbe. And you see from here, the Derech Eretz says that a Talmud shouldn't tell his Rebbe, your Rebbe. Just call him your friend. And the last other possibility would be that it would be the Sorah Mishtaleach, that they didn't leave the red string outside, people could see it, so they eventually took it inside and then to the Sorah Mishtaleach. And of there, the Chiddush would be that it was established in his name, even though he was only a Talmud at the time. But since he said it's Muslim Mistaber, so they established it in his name. Yasher Koach, and we'll be back in a minute to continue with Perek Avos Be'ez Hashem.
Have a good day.
Right.